Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. I'm so glad you're here. And today I have an upcycle project, and I'm going to start with these imitation coconut extract bottles. I have been saving these for a long time because I really like the shape of them. The labels on these bottles are glued on really well. I was able to remove them by soaking them in hot water and using a pumice stone, but the adhesive was left behind. So I did have to be careful. For example, you can see I'm drying them on a towel over to the left, but they did pick up some lint because of that adhesive. It's not a huge problem because we are going to paint them. So I am going to paint them with this Krylon Sea Glass spray paint, and the color is aqua. I think it comes in two different colors. And because it is not meant for outside use, but I do want to put these bottles outside, I'm going to then seal that with this Helmsman Spar urethane in a satin finish. Now I have 6 bottles. I've been experimenting with different stages of this craft, so one is already painted. You can see I have 5 here, and I've cut the bottom off of one of them. And what I did was I stuck them upside down in this thick cardboard that was in some packing of something, and I'm just going to give them several coats of the spray paint until I'm happy with the coverage. And I do want it to be varied because I am going for a sea glass sort of look. And then once the paint was completely dry, I did a few coats of the spar urethane. I think the can suggests 3 coats. Now, with those all painted, I'm going to cut off the bottom and the top of the bottles just to make them look a little less plasticky. So the bottom is actually pretty easy to cut with a box cutter knife. So I just basically poked my knife in and then tried to go in small increments, so I got something that was roughly circular. And I'm keeping the top on while I do the bottom first because that's the easier part. For the top, that is a much stronger plastic, and what I found was easier to remove. Not the whole top, I want to leave at least one little lip at the top, but most of it I want to remove. So what I did was I took my Aviation snips and I made several cuts down the top of the bottle, and then I was able to use my fingers to push that plastic outward a little bit, and then I used the Aviation snips to cut off those pieces. And once I had cut everything, I used some sandpaper, this is 60 grit, to just sand the top and the bottom where I had cut the bottles so that they wouldn't be quite so sharp. Now, what I have here is a lot of mesh bags from the grocery store. So when we buy lemons or limes or avocados, onions, oranges, etc., they come in these mesh bags, and I don't know why I love them so much, but I do, so I save them. Don't know what the purple one was holding, but I've decided that the 2 I'm going to use for this project are the darker green ones that I think held avocados, and then I have this sort of tannish one which held onions. And I'm going to cover 3 of the bottles with the green and 3 of the bottles with the tannish one. I do think that this is a look that makes sense for a coastal or seaside sort of look. It's a little kitsch, but I kind of like that. This project reminds me of going to a fish market or a seafood restaurant, and they're always decorated with kind of kitschy stuff like this, and I do love that. Tell me in the comments if you like coastal kitsch or any other kind of kitsch decor, or if you have fond memories that influence your decor decisions. I would really love to hear about it. So I've also got some twine here, and what I'm going to do is wrap the top of the bottle with the twine. And I did this a few different ways. I think you should do it whatever way seems to work out best for you. The way that I felt most confident about was I first measured out the amount of twine that I needed based on what I'm about to do and cut it. And then I started to wrap it around the bottle, but leaving a little bit of a tail, at least an inch, for tying at the end. I wrapped it around twice, and then, because I want to have sort of a loop at the top, I wrapped the twine around itself twice, went over the top the length of the loop that I want, and then I just held it on the other side, wrapped around once, wrapped it through that, and then started wrapping around the other way. So the idea is I just want a sort of a loop at the top of twine, which I'm going to use to hang this. And I fully intend to cut that and tie it, but I wasn't positive, so I left it as a loop at first. Then I just continued to wrap around the top of the bottle, and I tied it off with a square knot at the end. So that's right over left, left over right, nice and tight. And then I snipped the ends. This is very lightweight, so I think this knot is going to be just fine, this wrapping and knot. It's not like it's going to be a lot of heavy weight hanging on this. And that lip that I left at the top of the bottle should hold this in place. Now I'm just going to take some of that mesh, just enough to wrap around the bottle. And I don't want to completely cover the bottle, and I don't want it to be neat. I want just sort of a messy, washed up on the beach kind of look here. And again, I'm going to wrap with twine. So I'm going to leave myself a tail for tying off, and I'm going to decide that that's the back of this bottle where I have the tail. And then I'm just going to wrap around like 3 or 4 times, trying to make it sort of messy. Although you might think a nice, neat wrapping would look better, I was trying to not align my wrapping, and then just snip it and tie that off nice and tight with a square knot. And then I'm going to do the same thing around the bottom. So 1 around the top and 1 around the bottom, again nice and messy, matching up where I tie off, so where the back of the bottle is. And that's 1 bottle done. So I'm just going to do, as I said, 3 with the green and 3 with the tan. So 1 onion bag was enough to cover 3 of them because I only had 1 of those tannish bags. But I think I needed 2 avocado bags to do the other 3. This, I think, could be really fun with like a rainbow of colors. I didn't have any blue because I did consider doing a rainbow, but you know, any colors that you think would look nice for your decor, if you can find them in the mesh bags, then you can do that. Now, I have an old fishing net that I've thrown over my fence, and I'm going to hang these bottles in the fishing net in alternating colors, but sort of random heights and distances from each other. And I'd like to put something else in the fishing net, so I thought I would make some quick and dirty starfish. So continuing with our upcycle theme, I'm going to make these starfish out of soda cans. And what you need to do is basically cut off the top and the bottom of the can so you get a piece of aluminum. I'm not sure of the size, approximately 8 inches by 5 inches, maybe a little bit longer than that. And what I have here is a resin starfish from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to trace around this starfish, and I'm just going to use a pencil and trace around this starfish and cut it out with my Aviation snips. I got 2 starfish out of 1 soda can, and I had a leftover piece of a soda can, so I did 3 starfish total. And then I just took that piece of aluminum, so I didn't try to cut inside the lines. I tried to cut a little bit outside the lines so it would be a little bit thicker than the starfish. It's already thicker because we traced around it. And then I pressed it down over the starfish just to give it a little bit of dimension. And it might split a little bit. The aluminum is not strong, so it might split a little bit when you do that. That's fine as long as it still holds together in one piece. And if it doesn't, cut another one. Then I wanted to give it a little bit of texture because I do want to paint this and then dry brush over it. So I tried 2 different ways to give this texture. One way was I took a piece of wood that I had. This is actually one of those hanging shelves from the Dollar Tree that had a hole in it. And I held the aluminum over that or put the aluminum down on top of that and then pushed with a paintbrush into the hole to make little bumps on the starfish. That was a little bit time consuming. The second method that I used was I took the aluminum and pressed it over the starfish and then used the paintbrush and to sort of make a rubbing, because the starfish from the Dollar Tree has a little bit of texture on it. So that gave it a little bit of texture, not as pronounced as when I pushed into the hole. Now, the third way comes after you paint it. So to paint these, I'm going to use 3 different colors. I have these chalk paints, and you've seen me use these chalk paints before. They're my favorite coastal colors. So Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Cascade, in Grotto, and in White Adirondack. So I'm going to paint 2 of these in the Cascade and 1 in the Grotto as the base colors. And I'm painting both sides, but I'm not going to do any special technique on the back. I just don't want the back to show as, you know, being a Coke can. So I want to give it a little bit of coverage with the chalk paint. Now, the third way to get texture is if you then use a heat tool to dry the paint. It will bubble up. If you get it nice and hot, the metal will heat up and the paint will bubble up, and you'll get a little bit of texture that way. So I kind of liked that method the best, actually. Once I had painted them and they had dried, I dry brushed the White Adirondack over one of the starfish painted in the Cascade. That's the lighter blue. And I dry brushed the Grotto over the other one. So that's a sort of greenish color, dry brushed over the lighter blue. And I dry brushed the White Adirondack over the Grotto. And then I just took them outside and stuck them into the fishing net, just sort of arranged around my bottles. And I didn't think I wanted more than 3 of them. I think 3 starfish was enough here, but I don't know. I would love to know your suggestions. If there's something else you would add to this, I thought that some shells might look nice, like maybe some scallop shells. They're fairly lightweight. I did stick a few in there, but I wasn't in love with them. Or maybe it needs something at the top. I'm also considering some lights. I have some solar lights that I am charging right now, so I might try putting some lights in them tonight. I went outside a couple of hours later and I decided that it needed a pop of color. So I made a couple more starfish, and these I painted with Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in salmon coral. And then I thought I would try to spatter some of this apple barrel bright red over them with a toothbrush, but that was way too subtle. So I ended up pouncing a little bit with a stenciling brush and then dry brushing the White Adirondack over that. So I'd love to know what you think of this project, what you would have done differently. I think there are a lot of possibilities with these bottles. Please tell me in the comments. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.